Welcome to part 2 of your podcast for the Unit 2.2 notes on the American Revolution. Now that you're done watching and analyzing the video on the missing colony of Roanoke, let's jump into the rest of our lecture for today. So the British government needs money, they need taxes. Let's take a look at this. The colonists, the settlers, right, we learned that they came in 2 different waves. The first wave came in order to try to make money off of tobacco, and the second wave came in order to find religious freedom. The colonists in the 13 British colonies enjoyed a lot of independence from the British government due to distance. If we take a look here, these islands right here are where the British government, the constitutional monarchy, was located. The British settlers who came to the New World basically settled and created homes along this area of the New World. And because of this Atlantic Ocean distance, oftentimes the government, the constitutional monarchy in Britain, they very rarely visited the New World. And so these colonists living here in the New World had a lot of freedom to be able to do pretty much anything that they wanted without really worrying about the constitutional monarchy watching over them or enforcing rules or making them do things that they didn't want. But this independence is going to change. This changed after the British won the French and Indian War. Now, a lot of students confuse who was fighting who in the French and Indian War. So make sure you pay close attention to the next bullet point. The French and Indian War was when the British were fighting against the French and Indians. Why were the British fighting against the French and Indians? They were basically fighting over territory. The Indians had always lived in this territory. The French, who are located also in Europe, the French wanted to come over to the New World. They wanted to gain territory. The British, who were already here, they didn't want to lose any of their newly conquered territory. And so what's going to happen is the French are going to become friends with the Indians, and the French and the Indians are going to team up to try to go ahead and kick the British out of the New World. Now, Britain ends up winning the French and Indian War, so the British are able to defeat the French and they're able to defeat the Indians, but this comes at a huge cost. The British now needed money in order to pay for the war expenses and its large military. They spent a ton of money defeating the French and Indians, and they now needed to find the money to pay their soldiers. The British government decided that it was right to get this money from the 13 colonies via taxes. Why did the constitutional monarchy of Britain think that it was fair to get this needed money from the 13 colonies, to get this needed money from the settlers that were now living in the New World? The first reason was that the British government basically felt, we've fought this war for you, the colonists. If we, the constitutional monarchy, had not fought this war, then you, the settlers, would have been attacked by the French, and you would have been attacked by the Indians, and you probably all would have been killed. And so technically, we fought this war to protect you, so you should pay for it. The second reason that the constitutional monarchy believed that it was fair to tax the colonists for this war was because they felt, well, we, the constitutional monarchy, we're your government, and so you must do as we say. Just because you live all the way over here in the New World doesn't mean that you get to do whatever you want. You still need to listen to the government back in Britain. You still need to listen to the constitutional monarchy, and we are demanding that you pay, so you must pay. This is going to lead to a lot of conflict. On one hand, we're going to have the constitutional monarchy that's demanding these taxes be paid, and on the other hand, we're going to have some of the settlers, some of the colonists, who feel that they should not have to pay. So how does this increase tension? How does this ultimately lead to the American Revolution? Well, the colonists in the New World quickly became divided into 2 groups. The first group of colonists were called loyalists. And the loyalists, they were the people who were loyal to the British government. So they were the people who were willing to follow the rules on taxation. they agreed with the constitutional monarchy that they should have to pay. Now, most of the loyalists agreed with the British government because they either worked for the British government or they had recently immigrated, meaning they had recently moved into the colonies. So if they worked for the government or if they had recently moved into the colonies, these loyalists had a strong connection to the constitutional monarchy. They felt loyal to the constitutional monarchy, and therefore they believed that they should follow the rules of paying the taxes for the French and Indian War. On the other hand, living in the colonies, you had people who were considered patriots. And the patriots were the colonists who opposed, who were against the British government and its rules. They did not believe that they should have to pay these taxes. There's two big reasons why the patriots didn't believe they should pay for the taxes and why the patriots didn't believe they should listen to the constitutional monarchy. The first reason is a lot of these patriots, they didn't work for the government. So they didn't have any connection to the constitutional monarchy back in Great Britain. And at the same time, a lot of these patriots had been born in the colonies, meaning that they had never been to Britain, even though they were technically British because their ancestors had come from Britain. A lot of these patriots had never been to Britain. They didn't know anything about the British. They only knew what they experienced here living in the 13 colonies. And so since they didn't work for the British government and since they had never been to Britain because they were born in the colonies, these patriots did not feel the strong connection that the loyalists did. Now, the Patriots decided to protest the taxes. And so if we take a look at this image here, we can see a ton of Patriots walking around in the streets of the 13 colonies protesting these taxes that are supposed to collect money to pay for the war. They were protesting these taxes because they believed it was unfair. Why should we have to pay these taxes when we're not even being asked our opinion on the taxes? We're not even being asked how we feel about paying taxes. We're just being forced to pay these taxes. And so they were arguing that they had no representation, that they had no voice in the British government, that Parliament was technically not asking them for their opinion, and they believed Parliament should be asking them. They also argued that even though they had not been born in Britain, that they technically were still British citizens, and therefore they should still be protected under the laws in the Magna Carta and under the laws in the British Bill of Rights. And so they were arguing that they were being treated unfairly. Hey, even though we don't live in Britain, even though we live in the colonies, and we were born in the colonies, and we've never been to Britain, we are still technically British citizens, and we should still have the rights and protections offered to the British citizens. And we're not getting these British rights. The Patriot resistance to taxation led to more conflict. As the constitutional monarchy continued to press these patriots to pay the taxes, there became even more intense conflict, which is ultimately going to lead to two big events. The first event is called the Boston Massacre, and the second event is called the Boston Tea Party. Let's take a look at these two events. You're going to go ahead and pause the podcast in order to watch video 2 on the Boston Massacre of 1770. You can find the video link for this video in the description section of the podcast. As you watch the video, make sure that you answer the following questions, numbers 1 through 4, to ensure that you fully understand the content. Once you're done watching video 2, you can jump back into the podcast. All right, now that you're done watching video 2 on the Boston Massacre, let's analyze the other event that occurred in Boston. Go ahead and stop the podcast again and find the link for video 3 in the description section of this podcast. As you watch the video on the Boston Tea Party of 1773, be sure to answer the following questions, numbers 1 through 2, in order to make sure that you truly understand the Boston Tea Party event. Once you're done watching this video for the Boston Tea Party, you can jump back into the podcast. All right, so you were able to see some of these tensions that exploded in the colony of Boston. You were able to hear about how some of these patriots came to blows with the constitutional monarchy's soldiers. Let's take a look at what happens next. At this time, even though they've had the Boston Massacre, even though they've had the Boston Tea Party events, these patriots, they don't want to break away from Britain. They don't want to form their own country. They just want to be treated fairly, meaning they want to be able to voice their opinion on the taxations and why they think the taxation is unfair. They also want to try to find a way to fix the relationship they have with the constitutional monarchy back in Britain. Because they want to fix this relationship, they decide to send a letter to the government. And this letter was called the Olive Branch Petition. We can see this here, the Olive Branch Petition. The Patriots back in the 13 colonies send this document to Parliament and the King. Remember that at this point in time, the government within Britain is a constitutional monarchy. And in a constitutional monarchy, you do have a monarch, you have a king or queen, but you also have a parliament, meaning a group of representatives who are responsible for running the country. Even though there's a king or queen, Parliament technically has all the power, and the king or queen are basically just mascots. They're just symbols who are there to kind of like greet the people, who are there to take pictures with the people. They're just there for tradition. They don't actually have any governmental power. Power lies with Parliament, and Parliament was created from the Magna Carta, and Parliament was strengthened after the Glorious Revolution. Now, when they receive this Olive Branch Petition, when they receive this letter asking the king and asking the Parliament, please just listen to us, the Patriots. Let's fix our situation. Please treat us fairly. When the constitutional monarchy receives this document, they ignore it. They decide not to respond. They decide not to fix the issue. They decide we're going to go down to the 13 colonies and we're going to force these Patriots to pay these taxes. So Britain's response was pretty negative and pretty forceful. Britain decides to go ahead and send red coats. Red coats are basically what we would call the soldiers from this country, from Britain. They decide to send more and more red coats to the 13 colonies in order to punish the colonists for the Boston Tea Party and in order to force the colonists to pay the taxes. And so we see this very aggressive action being taken by the constitutional monarchy. Now the Patriots get extremely upset. We tried to negotiate with you. We tried to work out a deal with you. You decide to go and be forceful. You decide to go and be aggressive, and you send these extra redcoats. You send these extra soldiers. And so the Patriots have decided they have had enough, and they no longer are willing to work things out with Britain anymore. Now what they want is they want a revolution. They want to full-blown challenge their current government, the constitutional monarchy. And their goal by revolting is to ultimately break away from Great Britain and create their own country, which they want to make a democracy. Now, when the constitutional monarchy, when Parliament and the King learn that the Patriots now want to create a revolution, that they want to start a revolution, that they no longer want to fix things, the constitutional monarchy panics. And the constitutional monarchy tries to reach out to the Patriots to apologize. But unfortunately, it's too late for an apology. We're going to go ahead and jump into video 4, the Patriots video to the constitutional monarchy. I want you to stop the podcast and find the link for video 4 in the description section of this podcast. As you watch this video, jot down 2 things that you saw. Keep in mind that this is actual real footage that the Patriots send to the constitutional monarchy, letting the constitutional monarchy know it's too late for your apology. We are revolting, we are breaking away from you, and we are creating our own democracy. Once you're done watching video 4 and completing questions 1 and 2 for what you learned, please go ahead and find the link for part 3 of this podcast.